Quorum now. We'll call the Senate Regulated Industries and Utilities Committee to order. Got two bills on our agenda today. Had three, but I've been requested by Senator Ginn to hold off on action on the third bill. You hadn't changed your mind on that. There are apparently some ongoing negotiations between interested parties, and they may be able to come to us with a solution that is non-controversial, so we'll take our chances on that. All right, I'm going to call Senate Bill 102. Senator Kennedy, you may remain in place or go to podium, whatever suits you the best.
Stay here if that's okay, Mr. Chairman.
That'd be just fine.
All right.
You have the floor to present SB 102.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, committee members, for hearing a bill. This is really a very short and simple, straightforward bill which has one goal, and that is to make sure that local governments in Georgia don't limit our citizens' energy choices by banning certain fuels. So in Berkeley, California in 2019, it was the first local government to adopt an ordinance banning new natural gas hookups as a part of their effort to reach a net zero carbon goal. So if you're wondering why this bill is being brought and why we need to look at, consider, and pass this bill, that gives you an idea of where things are headed that we need to make sure that we look out for. The way these things typically start is with a city adopting a goal to reach, quote, net zero, close quote, carbon and at a future date like 2040 or 2050. The cities are then pressured by activists into adopting these bans on natural gas and propane under the theory that you cannot achieve net zero carbon if you're adding more places that use those types of fuels. So they enforce the ban through their construction codes and inspection authority, which naturally or normally applies to new constructions and new hookups. A few cities in Georgia have already adopted net zero carbon-free targets and are likely targets for similar campaigns to ban new natural gas and propane connections. So while these policies may be well-intentioned, it is my concern that they ignore the fact that natural gas and propane are clean-burning fuels whose costs have declined, leading to savings for the average Georgia consumer and a cleaner environment for our state. They also ignore the importance of these fuels to small businesses like restaurants and hotels, which depend on them as a cost-effective source for energy. Manufacturers and agriculture also rely on natural gas and propane in their production processes. Other impacts are likely to be felt in home building and commercial development as customers realize that they are limited in the choice if they buy newly developed properties. Finally, policies limiting natural gas and propane will impose market barriers to groups that want to develop renewable propane and natural gas projects. Fortunately, we can today, starting with this committee, protect our citizens and our local economies by limiting government's ability to pass these types of bans. By doing so, we would join 4 states that have adopted similar legislation last year prohibiting local governments from banning new hookups of natural gas and propane. Those states were Tennessee, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and Arizona. There are at least 10 other states considering similar legislation to what we're talking about today. So let's talk again about what SB 102 does. It's very simple. It simply states that a local government or authority may not impose a ban on new connections of an energy product simply based on the type of fuel that's being delivered for that energy to your home. It also prohibits bans on the sale of liquid petroleum products such as the LP tank for your gas grill or your kerosene small tank for camping. You may ask if this is really necessary, and I will tell you that I had my doubts as well until I learned that the place where all this started, the city of Berkeley in California, has just in the last few weeks adopted an ordinance banning the sale of gasoline for automobiles beginning in 2025. So you can see where the natural progression of this would go if this line of thought were left unchecked. So I do want to note, Mr. Chairman, if the members of the committee, that the bill protects the ability of those local governments that it would impact to choose their own fuels for government buildings. So if a city wants to electrify all of their buildings, they can do that. If they want natural gas or propane in all of their buildings, they too can do that. In addition, there's nothing in the bill that prohibits a city from providing incentives for electrification if they choose. Local officials will still have lots of tools available to them to reduce their emissions and respond to their constituents' priorities. So again, while the goals are well intended of some of the people that are bringing these types of local ordinances, they ignore some basic facts. That number one, natural gas and propane are clean burning fuels, and they are a critical part of lowering carbon emissions in the United States. Natural gas and propane are cost-efficient fuels which provide families heat and energy at very competitive rates. Restaurants, hotels, and small businesses depend on low-cost natural gas, propane, and other fuels to run their very business. Of particular concern is the Georgia agricultural community, like poultry farms, and our manufacturers rely on these fuels for their operations. Efforts to create renewable natural gas supplies from waste, which offer significant environmental benefits, require a robust natural gas distribution system for them to simply be effective. So, the net of this is preserving fuel choice for Georgians, and that is the real heart of this. The ability for our citizens to have the choice of what kind of fuel they want to warm their home, to supply their home. We need to keep that choice there to help keep energy costs low for families. We need to ensure that Georgia has a diverse energy supply, which increases reliability, which I don't need to talk about how important that's become in our modern day time. It also will make Georgia an even more competitive environment for job creation and economic development, and it puts Georgia on a level footing with states like Tennessee and Oklahoma that have already passed similar laws. I'm pleased to tell you that GMA is evaluating this. They take no position, and ACCG is neutral on the bill. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you allowing me to present this to the committee, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions from committee members? Senator Harbison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Kennedy, and you mentioned the ACG, they're hands-off kind of, they're
Yes,
standing
sir.
back. But are cities already doing what you're trying to put in, you're trying to codify what they're already doing? They have a choice to do yay or nay, or who's blocking them right now from doing what you're trying to put in the law right here?
Well, there's not a block, Senator, and that's a great question. And so what we're seeing happening in California with cities like the city of Berkeley are passing ordinances which say for new residential home hookups, it can't be natural gas. And so this wave, this idea that's coming across and being found in other areas of our country, we don't want that sort of idea of visiting Georgia. It's bad for Georgia. It's bad for our consumers. It's bad for our citizens. It denies them, you and I and the rest of the folks we represent, the right to choose, do you want an electric water heater or do you want a natural gas water heater? And so what we don't want is this mishmash of certain cities in Georgia passing these ordinances, which would be very disruptive to the energy market to exclude certain types of fuel sources being available. It really, at the end of the day, is about consumer choice and you being able to decide what kind of fuel supply do you want warming and powering your home.
But it sounds like you're doing a standardization, though, that by the very fact you're passing this bill, they can do what you're saying right now. When you're saying, let's not do that. Am I right? Because of the idea of clean energy kind of thing you're talking about coming from west to here, this reportedly, you know, it may not ever come, but if in case it does, this will protect us from
Yes, Senator.
having a mishmash as opposed to all natural gas or whatever kind of fuel.
Yes, sir. That's correct, Senator. This would stop cities from passing ordinances that would say, if you live in city of X and you have a new home hookup, you can't have natural gas, for example.
And you don't want them to be able to do that? I'm a little...
No, sir. I want you to have the choice. I don't want your city, I don't want my city passing an ordinance that says they, the city fathers, are going to decide what energy I have at my house.
I got you now. Okay, my bad.
Okay, yes, sir. And I'm sorry if I wasn't explaining it well. It may have come across kind of in the...
I thought you said you putting the handcuffs on.
No,
but
sir.
Okay, I
No,
understand.
sir. This
I
is
got
all
you.
about making sure you continue,
I picked
you'll
them
have
all
those
off.
choices.
Right, there we go.
Yes, sir.
Taking them off. Any other
Yeah, I'm done.
questions?
Thank you.
Okay. Any other members? Yes, ma'am. Let me see if I can get your number there. There
Number
we go,
4.
sir. Gotcha.
Thank you. I don't know if thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Senator Kennedy, I am a former local elected official twice. And this bill seems to restrict local governments from choosing, I guess, we always talk about local control, so having that local control to, because they would have to put or install the, or have to, they would have to install the lines, the utility, they would have that burden. So how is it that this is not, it sounds like it is restricting cities, because you said you don't want them to be able to tell you that you can't have your choice of utility of your choice. So it just sounds like that it is restricting them, and I just need a better understanding of how it's not.
Sure, and if we're looking at the two groups, Senator, that's going to be restricted, do we want the citizens to be restricted in the choices they have? Or do we want the local city council people to have the authority and right to restrict the choice of their citizens? And if that's how it comes down for you, I get it. And I think the right choice is here, let the citizens have the choice. Don't let whoever happens to be sitting in those seats for their term of office to have the right answers and dictate to their citizens, who are also citizens of Georgia, not just citizens of the city of whatever the city might be, but that those citizens of Georgia have the right to make those choices. And I appreciate, and I'm sure the folks that you or your former constituents appreciate your service, but I would also remind you from that perspective, I think it's very telling and very important that that ACCG is neutral on this, and GMA is not taking a position either.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Senator Anderson, do you have follow-ups?
I don't.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I recognize Senator Albers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, a couple quick questions. First one, isn't it true that today we have the Public Service Commission, and it's their role to actually govern all things that are going to be utility-based, whether it be gas, electric, things of that nature?
Generally speaking, Senator, you're right, yes.
Second question is, being the #1 place to do business the last 8 years in a row, a record for all states, if this type of things were done like it's been done in California, who's known to be probably one of the most anti-business states in the union, this would put in jeopardy our ability to stay the #1 place to do business, would it not?
I think it would put in serious jeopardy our ability to maintain that and also attract new business to Georgia, as well as threaten existing businesses.
In fact, just as a last question, aren't businesses streaming out of states like California, leaving for other states because of these onerous and oppressive regulations? And for that reason, we have been the benefit of some of those folks, but we don't want to become like them.
We have, Senator, and that's very well put, better than I could have put it. Thank you.
Other questions from committee members? All right, Senator Ginn, I recognize you for a question.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate that. Said since the fine senator from Macon, Georgia, read his comments, I'm going to read a text that I sent to one of our illustrious mayors yesterday. I work for both gas and electric utilities. I'll be pushing to pass this legislation if it simply allows the public to make a choice of what they want. I could see, we deal with a lot of different things. I think a couple meetings ago, we dealt with wood chips and burning wood chips. And for me, you could have a local government that says, no, you got to burn everything with wood chips. Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time, I'd like to make a motion do pass to LC 364661.
Well,
Yes.
I've got 38 people signed up to talk, and once they're done, it'll be the appropriate time. I'm only barely exaggerating that. Any other questions for the author? All right, we're going to then.
go.
All
Thank
right.
you, Senator, again for your comments.
Thank
How
you.
well written.
We'll ask Mr. Mark Woodall from the Sierra Club to please come in, take the podium, make your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Am I
Welcome.
supposed to keep my mask on or off?
You're welcome to take it off. We've got you distanced more than 6 feet from our illustrious senator from the 26 who has the antibodies.
Well, that's a good thing these days, I guess.
He earned them, though, the hard way, didn't he,
Yeah,
Senator Lucas?
I don't envy him his battle scars. But I'm Mark Woodall, the Legislative Chair of the Sierra Club. On behalf of our 50,000 members and supporters in Georgia, we're here to oppose Senate Bill 102. Number one, this is picking winners and losers. The American Gas Association has passed this bill in 4 states last year. It's been introduced in 12 states, including Georgia, this year. And what this does is try and pick frack gas as a winner. I mean, it might be a winner now, but I don't think, I certainly don't, and I don't believe the committee knows if it's going to be a winner in 10 or 20 years. So we shouldn't be picking winners and losers. Number two, this bill has a very big error in geography. It's all about what 40 cities in California have done. I'm quite sure that Georgia is not California, and I don't believe anybody in Sylvester or Hayhire or any other place in Georgia is going to take anybody's propane tanks away. I just don't believe this bill seeks to solve a problem that does not exist in this state at this time or any time. Number three, as you know, during the fracking boom, frack gas has gone to record low prices, but drilling booms do go bust. You may have seen 2 months ago, ExxonMobil wrote down their natural gas properties by over $20 billion. So, and I'm old enough to remember times like in 2008 when natural gas prices doubled. So I think the real number here is the $8 billion that Southern Company Georgia Power paid for Atlanta Gas Light. Because any bill that had picked frack gas to win, like this bill, I believe Georgia Power would have had 100 lobbyists down here fighting this bill. But now that they got $8 billion invested in frack gas, they're all about keeping it going as long as they can. We had several quotes from Ecclesiastes yesterday in the House debate, so I'll close with Proverbs 29:18. Where there is no vision, the people perish. So I'd ask y'all to hold this bill. Thank you very much.
Mr. Woodall, something keeps coming through my mind is, I mean, this is part of the new Green Deal and all that, getting free of, carbon, fossil fuel type things. Why isn't electricity also, generally speaking, based on fossil fuels? I know all the coal-fired plants, et cetera, or the natural gas-fired plants to produce electricity.
Well, Georgia Power, I got to commend them. We're going to have, over 5,000 megawatts of solar online here shortly. So the PSC got that started, and it's the market. I mean, solar is getting cheaper every day. We got the biggest solar panel factory in the North America up there at Dalton. So solar's coming on strong. Coal's down to 3 plants, and they're really just running them as peaking plants now. And gas will eventually, I don't know, they're doing research to try and figure out if they can take the carbon out. I mean, we're headed toward a carbon-constrained future at some point. I don't know when it's going to be, so we don't need to be picking carbon forever.
All right. Thank you for your comments today. Do you have a question, Senator Kennedy?
Just one question. I think, Mr. Woodall, thank you, and I appreciate you being here. So you characterize this bill as picking winners or losers, but in opposing this bill, you would support a municipality's right to deny a particular fuel source just based on 5 or 7 council members who happen to vote at that particular time. Would you not also call that picking winners and losers?
Well, well, sometimes we're for local control around here, and sometimes we're not. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but we have had a few cities. I think Atlanta, Athens, Clark, Savannah, Clarkston. I think that maybe one more say they want to move to a 100% clean energy future. But I don't think anybody, they have no plans to start stopping people. And it's about future connections. It's not about reconnections. I don't think anybody's going to take any restaurants' gas stove away. That's just not going to happen in Georgia.
But for those new ones that can't choose natural gas, those city elders have decided or deselected one of the fuel sources that new business could have. How is that not picking winners and losers? And if you're perhaps a gas company, why would you not have the full right to feel like a loser in that model?
Well, what I'm saying is no Georgia city has contemplated this. I don't believe any Georgia city ever will. As the sponsor in the House pointed out, there's plenty of incentives you can do to move people to whatever you want them to move to. So I just believe this might be a problem in California or Oregon or someplace. But the Gas Association's trying to cram this through in as many states as they can to try and keep their model going. And I just don't think that's appropriate for a state that's not going to have this problem.
Last question, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Mr. Woodall, then, do you think it's not going to be a problem in Georgia because it's such a crazy idea that Georgians won't do it?
No, I think it's the market. I just don't think, frac gas is not going to be cheap forever. Electrical, I mean, these new electrical heat pumps have got like 300 settings. I mean, they work in Maine and Norway, so, I mean, I think the market drives this.
All right, thank you
Thank
for
you.
your testimony, and if you'll send Mr. Brad Mock in. Brad Mock from Georgia Realtors.
Brad Mock, Georgia Realtors.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good afternoon.
Appreciate y'all letting us be here today. We support this bill, and then it gives choice to homeowners across the state. All the cities and all the counties will continue to have an opportunity for the homes they're building in the future, the homes they're renovating now, the homes they're living in, to make fuel choices that fit their budget. And our belief would be that they know their budget as a household better than their local government would know that budget, that may or may not want to make those changes. There's a similar bill elsewhere, and I testified on that and said that if this was specifically about a fuel choice, we wouldn't be here. We're here because this gives an opportunity for all these fuel choices for a homeowner. If they want to use natural gas, if they want to use solar, we would support that effort. And we want our homeowners to continue to have that effort, and our future homeowners to have that opportunity to make the best choice that fits their budget. We ask you would support this bill.
Any questions for Mr. Mock? All right, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. All right, let's try to see if I can make the Zoom connection work. I have Mr. Alex Muir from 100 Miles. He's asked to testify via Zoom. Let's see if the Zoom will reach that far.
Hey there, can y'all hear me?
Yeah, are you Alex? I'm sorry, I thought you were a mister.
That is quite all right.
All right, welcome to the Senate Regulated Industries Committee. Please
Thank
give
you
us
so
your
much,
views
Mr.
on SB
Chairman and
102.
committee members. I really appreciate the opportunity to participate virtually today. Like the chairman said, my name is Alex Muir. I'm calling in from Brunswick, Georgia today to offer these comments in opposition to SB 102 on behalf of 100 Miles. 100 Miles is a coastal conservation nonprofit representing over 1,100 members. It's been said that SB 102 is preserving the right of citizens to choose how their energy is generated. But what the bill does is take away the right of locally elected officials to make decisions based on what's best for their community, and it puts it in the hands, that right in the hands of the gas industry. These local commissioners and council members elected to serve the public, just like all of you, were entrusted by their community to make decisions based on what is best for their constituents. What this bill does is restrict their ability to fulfill that obligation. Down here on the coast, we are extremely familiar with the need to transition to renewable energy sources in order to avoid the grave consequences associated with burning fossil fuels. The choices we make about where our energy comes from has serious implications for public health, the well-being of our communities, and how we position ourselves to adapt for the future, where we'll continue to be met with challenges associated with our changing climate. The bill will not only impact aspirational local policies like the 100% renewable resolutions, but it will also dictate how local zoning ordinances and overlay districts can work. These decisions truly belong to local communities and should not be determined by legislation introduced to appease utility companies. And with that, I'll close by just asking that you vote no on SB 102 today.
Okay, thank you for your comments. And we'll now have Ms. Vicki Weeks with the Dogwood Alliance.
Yes, hi. And I am here to talk today about this because, and thank you so much for allowing us to participate in this remote session. It's really wonderful for citizens to be able to do this. People have already brought forward the concept of the elected officials in municipalities are elected by their constituents to represent the interests of those constituents. And one of the speakers said that 6 or 7 council members are making these winner-loser choices. Well, in Savannah, for example, this resolution passed with 100% support, unanimous support of the Savannah City Council. And the reason that this happened is because the citizens of the coast and Savannah recognize the incredible impact that is already occurring because of climate change. And I would ask you to consider, while the honorable senator wants to protect the right of some citizens to choose natural gas, which is a gas predominantly comprised of methane, which is hundreds and hundreds of times more heat trapping than carbon dioxide in terms of heating the planet. And let's make no mistake, the science is in, it's settled, and greenhouse gases are causing planetary heating. The impact of that heating here in Georgia is being now currently and disproportionately affecting the people on the coast. But the cost of this will accrue to business owners. It will accrue to homeowners. As sea levels rise, we are going to be paying more in insurance. People's home values are going to be decreasing because it's hard to sell a house with 2 feet of water in the living room. Businesses themselves will start losing their ability to generate revenue because people are going to be fleeing the coast as we watch the impact of this climate change. And so therefore, my final question to the Honorable Committee is, what are you going to do to protect the right of the rest of the citizens to be free from harm, from bad choices being made by a minority, when the majority of citizens and their representatives in some cities are seeing the light based on the facts? Thank you.
All right, seeing no questions, we thank you as well. Next, I call Mr. Stephen Lofton from the Natural Gas Association of Georgia. Come on in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I'm Stephen Lofton. I represent the Natural Gas Association of Georgia today. Wanted to start off by thanking Senator Kennedy for bringing this important legislation. Obviously, the Natural Gas Association supports it, and one of the reasons that we support it is because of the prospect of renewable natural gas that is on the horizon and on the near horizon. There are a number of companies that are looking at creating these plants. They've developed new technologies that are going to allow them to use animal waste, chicken waste, things like that, and create methane, capture that methane from that waste, and then put it back into the fuel or the natural gas distribution system. Propane, and while I don't represent the Propane Association, they're a member of our coalition. Propane has the same technology. They're doing the same thing with animal waste, and they're looking forward to having that renewable resource available for sale to their consumers as well. But all of those technologies require a distribution system, and you want to have a distribution system that's going to be allowed to grow, right? And so if we have cities that are limiting the ability of the industry to grow artificially, then that sends the wrong signal to this market, which has huge potential for investment, for jobs in rural areas, and also for the ability to clean a pollution problem, a waste problem, and we can take that, turn it around, and make it a natural resource for our state. Mr. Chairman, Senator Kennedy covered the bill much better than I could, but I'm happy to answer any questions that y'all may have.
Any members have questions for Mr. Lofton? All right, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Return to Zoom, Ms. Karen Graney from Center for a Sustainable Coast.
Okay, yes. Thank you for inviting us to speak to you about SB 102 via Zoom. My name is Karen Graney. I'm the co-director of the Center for a Sustainable Coast, and I live in Savannah, Georgia. And I'm here to ask you to vote against this bill. And I've prepared comments ahead of time so that I don't ramble on and take up too much of your valuable time, so pardon me for reading. Okay. The proponents of this bill and the matching one that just passed the House claim that they are concerned about protecting energy consumers, when it is obvious that it's the natural gas industry that is seeking protection from the transition to clean energy, already well underway. At the industry's bidding, almost identical bills have been introduced in 12 states this year, and 4 were just apparently already passed in 4 other states. I didn't know that. The transition to clean energy benefits consumers by providing healthier air quality, affordable power bills, and less threatening future for our children and grandchildren who will suffer the consequences of our reckless use of fossil fuels. Instead of shielding polluting industry whose days are numbered, you should be embracing the transition to clean energy and taking initiative to accelerate it. Our survival depends on it. Times are changing, and so is public opinion. Bills like this that attempt to thwart positive changes essential to our survival conflict with popular opinion. According to an ongoing Yale University survey on global warming, 73% of Georgians support regulating carbon dioxide as a pollutant. 81% support tax rebates for solar panels. 54% want local officials to do more about global warming. 60% want the governor to do more about global warming. The survey doesn't ask about the General Assembly, and I think it should. Okay, that's a missing element in this survey. But 57% want Congress to do more, and 60% want the president to do more. I think it's high time that government officials at all levels of government support each other and coordinate a strategy to get us to net zero carbon emissions by 2050. And that's all I have to say.
Okay. I have one question, if you'll hang with us just a second. Senator Gooch.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name when you first introduced yourself, but I was curious. You don't want us to prohibit local governments from banning the use of certain energy, is that correct?
That's correct.
So if a city or a county decided to ban the use of solar panels, would you support that decision at the local level?
No, I would not.
Okay.
I think that's fairly obvious that I would not support that.
Okay, thank you.
But you would support their ability to do that if they chose to?
No, I didn't. I'm not making the local control argument. I'm not a big, I didn't mention local control because I don't think that's the strongest argument against this bill. I think the strongest argument against this bill is the climate crisis.
This bill.
So don't ask me about local control. I have, I think that you should be cooperating with the cities. You should be cooperating with the federal government. You should be cooperating with other states on coming up with solutions for the climate crisis. I don't think we should be bickering over local control.
All righty. Thank you for being with us today. You have an alderman from Savannah on our list, Nick Palumba. See if we can hook you up.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you fine. Can you hear us?
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you all this afternoon. My name is Nick Palumbo, and I serve as the alderman for the 4th District in the city of Savannah. I come to you today representing my city and on behalf of 13 municipal leaders from across the state of Georgia to speak in opposition to this bill. I encourage you to send this one back so that Georgians can have the opportunity for a brighter, cleaner future. I believe the sources of our energy matter. That's why you're serving on this committee. That's why we're here today. They matter to our residents. They matter to our economy. They matter to the future of our state. And the decision is yours today of which energy choice do you want to choose, the cleaner, brighter, more sustainable future, or the older model. You can choose a sustainable future by voting down this bill. Over the last year, major municipalities across Georgia, it includes Atlanta, Athens, Clark, Augusta, Clarkston, and Savannah, chose to pursue clean and renewable energy goals. I will gladly put on the local control hat because it's not a chicken and the egg argument. It's one of the Georgia Constitution. And I believe that Constitution is absolute. We have to follow it. We are empowered to make those decisions and be responsible to our constituents. Those of you who've served in elected office know that people come on by the front door to let their concerns be heard. And frankly, I don't buy into the comparison to Berkeley. I don't see any city in the state of Georgia aspiring to that, but it is a frequent boogeyman out there, and I understand. We have to look to other examples and try to do better. Today is the opportunity to do better than those cities, those states who have taken 2 steps backwards in approving bills just like this one that's put on, and it is put on by the major gas industry. Daytime flooding and sea level rise has left thousands of Georgians on the coast with the losing proposition of being forced to upgrade and lift their homes or abandon them. I think it's a lot easier to propose a bill when you're in a place that's 1,000 feet above sea level, when we're here down on the ground floor in Georgia's mother city. The ability to secure flood insurance is more scarce by the minute on the coast. And local municipalities are trying to do anything that they can to undo decades of environmental wrongdoing for the communities they serve. I ask you to let us do our thing. Let us empower our cities to make those choices. I wish we could stop the effects of the changing environment immediately, because we're seeing the impacts and the difficult challenges right now. They're not ahead, they are here at our front door. We need your help. And the big thing that you can do for us to help us today is voting down this bill. I encourage you, please support our effort of all residents of coastal Georgia by voting down this bill. Put us on a brighter, more projected trajectory that empowers local government with the choice to pursue their own goals. Thank you.
Mr. Palumbo, let me ask you just a few questions. I mean, and these are all very respectful, because I think your position is probably the toughest in any elected positions. You know, like you say, you got folks coming to your front door because it's personal at that level. I think Senator Anderson could relate to that, we're a little bit more removed from, you know, my trash didn't get picked up last night and those type of issues that matter, and you have to live next to those folks. But don't you agree that there are certain policy areas that are best addressed on a statewide level rather than having a mishmash piecework ordinances throughout the state, or some people, you know, want to limit power usages and others don't?
I agree. You know, unemployment, there are statewide issues that certainly need that broad focus. But specifically at the local level, I mean, you're talking about building codes. That's what, you know, the senator had brought up when this began, was talking about individual choices there. And that's a fundamentally local issue. We've got to decide, I mean, if we're going to get on that level, we need to change the building code so that we can build our houses higher, because it's a losing proposition to build them where they're at right now. And we're looking at not being able to allow houses to be built on slabs anymore. I mean, that's the reality of where we're at in the city of Savannah.
Okay,
so
this particular issue is global warming. It's the new Green Deal. All these cities are looking to try to reduce carbon emissions. Where I'm having a real block here is that one city isn't going to change the temperature of the earth 1 centimeter. You know, Savannah can't solve the big problem individually. I mean, you really can't do it in the state of Georgia or the United States of America when you got 1 billion people in India and China, however many they got, that, you know, are polluting and putting up, I mean, you can't change the problem on your own as one little community, because sea level is going to rise with or without your ordinance, right?
Fundamentally, Mr. Chairman, there is no greater joy than being lost in a worthy cause. I would rather go down swinging than stick my head in the sand. And we have to do our very best. It takes every single one of us. And if it just takes a municipality that's brave enough to say it, then so be it. But we would love to have the state on board too.
I think you'd be better served lobbying us to impose a statewide ban on natural gas heating homes and cooking with and things like that. But that's just the disconnect in my mind. But I appreciate you sharing your thoughts, and I love your passion. You're a good leader. Senator Gooch has a question for you.
Sir, thank you for serving in the office you're in. I used to be a Soule County Commissioner, and one of the most important things that I faced in my job as a Soule Commissioner was the lack of infrastructure in my community. In a rural area, without infrastructure, you can't recruit industry. And I can imagine what Savannah, Chatham County would look like today if you didn't have water, sewer, and natural gas. I suspect most of your industry would be somewhere else. I do not know how you would recruit any significant high-paying jobs to that area if you didn't have any of those components. Even the Savannah port, I would think, uses a great deal of natural gas. So are you proposing to ban natural gas for all of your industry people in that community?
Not at all. Today, we're evaluating whether or not you can ban cities from making that choice. You know, we can play the hypothetical game and the what if and could be, but, you know, each decision is made in its time. And for today, we're determining who has the right to say. I believe that cities have to make those choices. They have to make those tough choices. And when you look at the things that are making it worse out there, we have to be able to look at cities and let them choose for their constituents.
All right. Thank you so much for being with us today. And I will invite Daniel New and Karen Bremer. You can come in with him since y'all are together with the Georgia Restaurant Association. Y'all hear me out there? Karen, Daniel, there we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. In the interest of time, my testimony will also be on behalf of Karen Bremer, CEO and President of the Georgia Restaurant Association. Excuse me. The Georgia Restaurant Association represents all the eating and drinking establishments across the state of Georgia. Pre-COVID, that would have meant 18,000 businesses in addition to $25 billion in revenue. However, since the pandemic, we are projecting a loss of 20% of those businesses and a loss of $5 billion in revenue. Most of those losses are the small mom and pop restaurants who were dependent on in-person dining. The Georgia Restaurant Association is asking for your favorable consideration of this bill. Fuel choice is very important for our industry. We have seen that when you limit choice, prices do skyrocket, and that could be devastating on an industry that is dependent on a 3 to 5% profit margin. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer any, but we thank you for considering this issue.
Thank you for sharing with us today. I'll ask Kevin Iona, Climate Reality Project, if we can hook him up. I'm sorry, do you have a question, Senator? I wanted to ask you. All right, Daniel, come back in here. Look at here. My good friend from Macon has a question for you.
You say y'all are for this bill.
Yes, sir.
So does the bill make sure that you get natural gas, or is the bill stopping anyone in it from serving you?
From our understanding, the bill allows the option for whether a restaurant wants to choose to have equipment that is run on gas or electricity, and that option is very important. There was a older study that showed that for every square foot, it was a little over $2 of energy used in electricity. It was only 85 cents per square foot for gas use. So we see this bill as providing that option and making sure the option is always going to be there for restaurants.
Has your local government tried to decide what's best for you?
Currently, no. We have seen this in our other sister states. In California, I think it was Berkeley, city of Berkeley. The California Restaurant Association this was an issue that they did have to deal with and had showed more effect of what the devastating effects it could have on this industry.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Sir, who else we got? No further questions. All right. Kevin Iona, if we can hook him up. Oop, wrong one.
That's the wrong one. Just got through with him.
Kevin, you with us?
Can you hear me?
There you go. We got you now.
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I want to talk about my city, Savannah. Oh, by the way, my name is Kevin Iona. I'm the chair of the Climate Reality Project in Savannah, Georgia, of the Coastal Empire. But I want to talk about my city, Savannah. In 2019, Savannah had 22 days more of extreme heat than it did in 1980, extreme heat being greater than 105 degrees heat index. This poses a health risk to elderly, to young children, and to Savannah residents with compromised health. In 1980, Savannah had 4 days of extreme flooding. In 2019, according to the National Weather Service, it had over 40 days of extreme flooding due to sea level rise caused by melting glaciers and warming seas. Coastal property in the state is at risk of a collapse in value, which will cause severe financial hardship to thousands of families, including both the well-off and those of low and moderate income. Warming seas were also responsible for the busiest Atlantic storm season in history this past year, the 5th year in a row it's been above average. In recent years, Hurricanes Matthew and Irma glanced Savannah and yet still caused widespread damage. Had either one of those hurricanes hit us head on, we would have had our own Hurricane Katrina. And it's not just the coast. Other parts of Georgia are experiencing increased heat, drought, storms, and wildfires. Why is this relevant? 5 Georgia cities, including mine, have passed resolution to 100% clean, safe, renewable energy because they want to play a role in mitigating the effects of the climate emergency and improving the well-being of their citizens. Senate Bill 102 restricts the autonomy of local governments to respond decisively to the local threats of the climate emergency by undercutting community decision-making. If enacted, it would create barriers to cities and counties in their transition away from antiquated fossil fuel technologies into modern, safe, clean, renewable ones. And it would essentially make any commitment to 100% clean energy much more difficult. As to the question I heard a minute ago about what could Savannah do by itself to change global warming, what if every government agency in the world, city, local, state, federal, had that attitude that, well, it's only us, we can't do anything. This is a global problem, and every government agency, every government entity that participates in the shift to 100% clean energy is going to make a difference. The truth is the fossil fuel industry is losing in the economic free market as green energy is expanding around the world due to lower cost. They are also losing in the free market of ideas where it is understood we can no longer support outdated technologies which degrade the quality of life on the planet and for the people of Georgia. Let Southern Company, the Gas Association, et cetera, all compete in a true energy market with quick, nimble, and innovative energy entrepreneurs. The transition to a safe, clean, renewable economy will create new, higher-paying jobs, raise community health standards, promote equity and environmental justice, and the shift will make communities more resilient to increased and more severe storms, flooding, and heat. And it will lower cost. Now, the argument for State Bill 102 is framed as a matter of freedom, the freedom of consumers to choose for themselves. On the surface, this seems reasonable. The country is founded on the principle of freedom. But as citizens, we don't have unlimited freedom. We don't have the freedom to act when our actions threaten the well-being of others. Despite the spin of individual rights being given, this is really about the right of Georgia citizens to have a government that acts to protect their future well-being and that of their children. Government has often limited individual rights in the cause of protecting the health and safety of its citizens. I'm old enough to remember when the argument for freedom was used to oppose seatbelts. Now we all wear them, and they've saved innumerable lives. There's no longer any smoking in public buildings because of the understanding that secondhand smoke is a public health hazard. Georgia cities have noise ordinances which limit excessively loud music, and so that more sober citizens can sleep. No legislation exists that prohibits natural gas hookups, but if such legislation is proposed, it will be because, contrary to Senator Kennedy's comments, of the dangers of the continued extraction and burning of natural gas and what it poses to public health and its contribution to a dangerously warming planet, which is a threat to the people of Georgia as well as to the world. That's really what's at stake here. If SB 102 passes, the state will have abdicated from its moral duty to help Georgia to play its role in the country and the world by hampering efforts to craft any meaningful response to the effects of climate emergency on Georgia's citizens. I would love to see the state of Georgia pass a 100% resolution. 6 of you here today are on this committee are sponsors of this bill. And I ask you to withdraw your sponsorship, and I ask for all of you on the committee to vote no on Senate Bill 102. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your passionate and very eloquent comments. All right, at this point, I have heard 3 people speak in favor of the bill, the Georgia Realtors, the Natural Gas Association, and the Restaurant Associations, and I've allowed 6 people in opposition. I think we got the gist of the arguments pro and con. There are another 5 or 6 or 7 people that would like to speak against it, but I have the sentiment that the arguments against have been well presented to the committee. I hate to, but in the interest of the time, I'm not going to listen to any other live testimony today. Any of you that signed up, call my assistant, Cindy West. You are free to submit written statements to us or arguments or whatever information you want to provide, and we will share it with the entire Senate. Senator, again, I recognize you for that motion. Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I move to pass on LC 364661. Yes. Is there a second? Second by Senator Albers and Senator Mullis. Any discussion on the bill? All right. All in favor, raise your hand. Please make an accurate count here, Cindy. Hold them up for just 1 or 2 more seconds. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. All opposed, like sign. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 against. All right, the bill passes, and that will move on to the Rules Committee for further consideration. All right, next bill up today is Senate Bill, what's your number, Matt? 145. Senator Brass, if you will present that, you can do it from your seat or the podium, whichever is most convenient for you. All right. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our illustrious Rules Chairman inspired me earlier today to come to the podium, so I wanted to follow in his wise footsteps. Maybe I can be him when I grow up.
Just a word of warning,
so
they don't necessarily follow him everywhere he leads, see. Yeah, he once led me to the Leopard Lounge, and I will never forget that evening.
All right, so Senate Bill 145 is very simple, and the meat and the potatoes is really in line 16 through 18, or 16 through 19. But current law, in order to get package sales meaning a liquor store, in order to get that on the ballot, we have one method in this state, and that is for someone to go around and get a petition and get 35% of the registered voters in that particular county or that particular city to go around and get that 35%, to get them to sign that petition, and then they present that to the local municipality or the local county. Then they put it on the ballot, and then the people decide, and then that, once they vote, that then gives that local municipality or that local county the authority to issue licenses for package sales. So this bill does 2 things. Number one is it takes the 35% and we are simply reducing that number down to 20%. I feel like this was necessary because when that 35% came into law, I don't know exactly how far back, but I know whenever it was, our population in this state and most of our counties was a lot less. And for instance, Coweta County right now, I've got 102,110 registered voters for 2020. So that 35% would require, if I wanted liquor stores, and to be clear, I actually don't want liquor stores in my county, which is dry. But, sir? We'll get there. So 35% would be 35,738. And dropping that to 20% would now require 20,422 signatures for me to go present to my local county in order to get this on the referendum. Now, back in, I just pulled stats for 2000. We had roughly a population in the county of about 89,000. So if you take the same percentage of registered voters based on the population, that'd give you about 64,000 registered voters back then, which would, at 35%, be roughly about 20,000 voters. 20,000 signatures. So reducing that 20% really gets my county back to that 2000, the year 2000 numbers in order to get it on the ballot. Now, the other part of the bill, and this is the part where probably has more opposition than the petition part, is we're adding a second measure in order to get that on the referendum. And we're allowing our local municipality or our local county to decide if they would like to put it on the ballot themselves by simply introducing a resolution or an ordinance. And I know in our last testimony, we heard the comment, sometimes we're for local control, sometimes we're against it. And I think it's important to note to me is I am for local control at all times unless I feel like there is abuse of that local control or there is potential for that abuse. And in this case, I don't think there's potential for abuse. I do think the state law has gotten in the way of local municipalities and local counties to actually do whatever it is they want to do. And ultimately what they're doing is they're letting the people decide, and then it comes back. It is non-binding. Once it goes on the ballot and it votes, and should it pass, it is still non-binding. It comes back. It simply gives that local government the authority to issue out these package sales licenses. They don't have to act on it. And so that's simply what the bill does. And I'll be more than happy to take questions, Mr. Chairman.
Make sure I'm clear. You are against package sales of alcohol in your county, but
I
you're
didn't say you're
passing a bill to make it easier to do.
I would not. I'll say this. I would not.
You're going to be good at this business.
I would not sign a petition for my county to pass it. Now, I do have a local municipality, Grantville, in my county that they have 3 liquor stores. Actually, they may be down to 2 now. So they did it locally, and it's been there for years. I mean, that's where everybody in church used to go get their liquor.
That's funny.
And you can drive to Grantville, nobody'd see you getting it. So I'm okay with no liquor stores in my county. I don't mind driving to Grantville. I don't mind. And I ain't scared to say it. I converted from baptism to Presbyterian so that I could say this publicly. I don't mind driving to Whitesburg. I don't mind driving to Grantville. I don't mind driving to Peachtree City to grab a bottle of liquor. So I would not be signing a petition, and I'm not going to be lobbying my locals one way or the other, but I do think that they should have the ability to do that. And the reason I think that is because this is one outlier in locals' ability dealing with alcohol. It is one of the outliers out there that they don't have local control of, and I'm simply just getting the state out of the business of telling them on this particular issue.
All right. Senator Mullis, I recognize you for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman.
President.
Am I on? Hello. Hey, I'm grateful that Senator Brass is bringing this to us, and I kind of somewhat go back to our motto: wisdom, justice, and moderation. We were at 35%, and I've told the industry that's way too high, but I think we ought to moderate it down to 20% and keep this same petition scenario for now. And then after the petition, then allow the local elected officials to vote it put it on the referendum. Anyway, that's what I wish we'd do. I don't have a what do you call it? Committee assignment or committee amendment ready, but I would just think that's the way we should handle it. But I'm here for the wisdom of the committee.
Are there other questions, Senator Harvey?
Yeah, to that end, in the line of our rules chairman, on line 17, what I'm seeking to do is to
Talk in that microphone there, Senator. Just pull it over towards you a little bit. There you go.
I have my mask on too.
That's good.
On line 17, strike all the new language. And I hope that doesn't, I hope was a friendly change to the author of the bill and to the rules chairman's comments. Just strike the new language and leave everything as is, and I believe that will achieve.
So you would strike the words "an ordinance or resolution" through the word "upon"?
Upon A.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Let me ask the author, would that be perceived as a friendly amendment by you, or would you prefer it not to be altered?
I will not support. I would not support the amendment. I don't, anything coming from the great senator from Muskogee County is always friendly. So I don't consider it a disrespect or anything like that. I don't consider it personal. I don't support it, but I certainly,
fair enough.
you know.
Okay. Let's hear any more questions here. Then I've got a few speakers here. I'm going to try to get your bill completed today. I'm going to call Mr. Stoney McGill, who should be in the hallway. Come on in, Mr. McGill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Stoney McGill. I represent Georgia Alcohol Dealers Association. We're a trade association of about 500 retail package stores around the state. I've been representing the GADA now for this my 30th session being down here. Like the rules chairman in his wisdom said, you know, the state seal right here, you know, that moderation is important to us. We've had a lot of our members go through the process of doing the petition. We do understand that 35% is a big number in some of the larger municipalities. It's not impossible. Again, we've done these around the state. We've helped our members and other people do these around the state. But we support going down to 20% on the petition requirement. But we would strongly support the amendment offered to strike the part of completely doing away with the petition requirement. We feel like alcohol in a community, just like the author said, it's a big deal to have liquor come to your community, and to have this, to have the community involvement that the petition requirement takes allows the community to understand that liquor's coming into your community. It's gonna have an impact on your community. That way, this isn't kind of snuck in on a special election in the middle of the summer when the voting population is very low. So again, we can be supportive of the legislation if amended, and that's all I have. I'll take a question.
Senator Brass.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Stoney. I did want to ask you. You had mentioned the community involvement. I agree with that with the petition. I think that's good. I think our elected officials are pretty involved in our communities as well. But you had mentioned the impact liquor's gonna have on a community. What sort of impact are you referring to?
Well, there's there's a certain taboo to liquor. Liquor's not like beer or wine or groceries or anything else. It's a big deal. Some communities don't want liquor in their community. Some people move to communities based on the fact that there's not liquor in that community. And so I think community involvement with this petition is an important part of the industry that I represent.
Thank you.
Other questions? All right, thank you for being with us. I'll call Mr. Tom Gale, Georgia Municipal Association.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. In a package. Go right ahead, Mr. Gale. Good to have you.
Chairman, thank you. Members of the committee, my name is Tom Gale. I'm the Director of Governmental Relations for the Georgia Municipal Association. GMA supports Senate Bill 145 as it comes to this committee. This legislation is consistent with the legislature's recent efforts to modernize the state's approach to alcohol. Cities and counties have grown substantially in population since this petition requirement was put in place in state law in the 1937-38 term of the General Assembly. The petition requirement, enacted on the heels of the repeal of prohibition, is both anachronistic and anti-competitive. ACCG is supportive of this, and I've been authorized by their team to point that out. Many cities across the state would like the ability to place a referendum on the ballot to allow their voters, to determine whether package sales of distilled spirits are appropriate for their communities. Since Senator Brass had his bill introduced, we've heard from cities directly from Beaufort, Cochran, Canton, Carnesville, Bowden, Royston, Fayetteville, Climax, Vienna, the city of Butler, cities that would love to have the opportunity to spur some economic development and bring this small business to allow package sales in their jurisdictions. So GMA urges your favorable consideration of Senate Bill 145. And with all due respect to my friend Senator Harbison, we have concerns with that amendment that would remove the ability of elected city councils and county commissions from deciding whether to allow their voters to make a choice on package sales.
Currently, they don't have the authority to make that choice without a petition of 35% though, right?
Yes, sir, that's correct. You're reading it the same way I am.
Any other questions from committee members? Thank you for sharing your testimony with us today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Mike Griffin. Come on in, Preacher Griffin.
He's not out there, I've got his statement.
Oh,
Republican water.
and a display of great gentlemanly consideration. Chairman Brass has a statement from Mike Griffin in opposition to his bill.
So, he texted me a statement saying he may have to run over to another bill in the House, and so I agreed to read the statement. But he said Georgia Baptists, this is a quote from the text, Georgia Baptists are not for doing away with the petition requirement. However, we do think that at least 20% should be the minimum of signatures. Signed Mike Griffin.
All right. I need to consult briefly with Legislative Counsel. Sean Marie, have you had an opportunity here to look at that amendment? It seems concise, and I don't object to amendments being made other than if they're significant. I like to see them in advance. Part of the problem is it's difficult sometimes for you to draw it up right on the fly. Is this one work as proposed to accomplish the objective of the author or of the proponent of the amendment?
May I ask, just for clarification?
Sure,
what the
I'm
intent
going
is?
to try my best to turn you on, Senator Harbison, so you can have a colloquy here.
Yes, ma'am. It's simply on page 2, lines 17 and 18, it simply removes the new language.
So the intent is just to change the
I'm sorry, I
petition
have a year.
requirement to 20%?
Yes, ma'am.
But to not allow it to be, the referendum to be called by ordinance or resolution, is that correct?
I believe that's correct, if I'm hearing you correct, right.
You don't want to allow the referendum to be called by ordinance or resolution, is that correct?
I believe the only question is in the percentage there. They want to go from 35 to 20%. And I believe that, and then, like you say, take that language out.
So, yes, I could do that here in committee, but it will require more than just changing those two lines.
It required more than just taking it out?
Yes, sir, but I could go over what that is.
Okay. Long as I don't want to mess with his bill. I just want to.
So, yeah, and it's
Mess with
really
it.
just because that language appears throughout the bill, but I could go through what those changes would be.
Okay.
But in order to accomplish what you're wanting to accomplish, it will involve striking additional language, but I could go through that with the committee if you would like for me to.
But
Why don't you do it on the floor?
It's just because, you want me to show you what it will be?
I don't want to get off. I was trying to do a favor for.
I'm looking at lines 21 and 26 and part of 38.
Oh, God, dog. Actually, they got me in a position. Stone.
Tell you what we're going to do. After consulting with council, this is a much more involved amendment that the purpose is concise, but on the draftsmanship, it's going to impact a number of other areas, and rather than us get sloppy work out of here, I think what I'd like to do is let's go ahead and let's hold off on the amendment, and that could either be done on the floor, or I will give the author the option to either go ahead with your vote now or wait until Thursday's meeting to do that. Your dilemma here is, do you have the votes to pass it without that amendment or not? And I'm gonna defer to you on that, Mr. Vice Chairman. All right. Y'all heard that? Do we have gambling days gonna come back on Thursday? He's already rolling the dice.
Getting ready for Thursday.
Okay. All right, so we have on. You would be free to offer that amendment on the floor. If it happens to pass this committee, and you all might vote it down since he wouldn't postpone. Not until the last 5 days. All right, so I have a motion do pass. Was there a second? Second. There's a second by Senator Lucas. Senator Harbison's been gracious enough to withdraw his amendment so as not to delay action on this bill today. Any further discussion of the measure? All right, all in favor of the do pass motion to do pass Senate Bill 145 by committee substitute, is that right, Sean Marie? Or it's no substitute, so it's just as presented? All right. Do pass Senate Bill 145. Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Unanimous. 7 votes in favor. My vice chairman is strong. Okay. Now I have had, so we'll mark that as passed. Senator Ginn had asked me for a hearing on 219. Then he asked me to postpone the hearing on 219. And then now he's clarified we are not going to vote on 219, but there are a couple of witnesses that have apparently traveled here from some distances to speak. From Savannah, where they no longer have power. They're in the dark down there. Let's see. Chris, did you make it here? Are you out in the hall? If you are, come on in. Chris Herron, are you here? Go catch him. If he's here, he may have left now.
Can I hit the bill real quick, highlights?
Yeah, here, I'll hand it to you. We have it in the folder. You want the summary, or what do you?
I just, if you give me 2 minutes, we'll be done.
You just need a minute to tell him what he's testifying for?
Well, I want to address the bill, what the bill's actually doing.
I wish all my witnesses were that easily coachable. All right, go ahead, we'll give you a couple minutes.
Mr. Chairman said for me, I just wanted everybody to meet Chris Herron. He operates a brewery, actually 2 breweries in Athens, Creature Comforts. One of the things that one of his breweries is in Senator Cowser's district, and one of them is in my district. The problem that we address and what we're trying to get done here is he can't take product from one place, move it to the other, and sell it in the current form of the law. So, Chris, I'm going to let you address a little bit more.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with everybody and for y'all giving this bill a hearing. And Senator, again, thank you very much for crafting it. I think it's extremely well done as it's crafted. When we passed SB 85 back in 2017, which allowed direct sales for breweries for the first time ever, at that point in time, no breweries had more than one location. As a result of SB 85, we've seen enormous growth both in the number of breweries that have been able to come, and it has been extremely helpful to existing breweries. The result of that being that a number of them have needed to expand as we did. We went into an old 1910, 1890 mill and began the renovation of that project, which is now fully out and renovated. We won a historic preservation award for that work as well. And with that, created a much larger brewing facility. The current challenge that has is this just wasn't really contemplated when we passed SB 85. And so what we're looking to do is transfer beer in bond between our breweries. Both are fully manufactured, licensed breweries. And one of the reasons is manufacturing beer uses live organisms, uses very complex processes. To be able to consistently produce the exact same beer at two locations is an extremely difficult thing to be able to do. And so from a consumer standpoint, we really think it's much better for them as well for us to be able to do that. And so I'm born and raised in Georgia. This is what we think a very, very small and simple opportunity for us to move it forward. Georgia's #1 in the country when it comes to small business. We're about 48th when it comes to small breweries. We are making progress, and we're extremely grateful for that. And I think that we proved with SB 85 that when given the opportunity, we can see how it benefits not just the supplier side of this, but also the retailer side and our wholesaler partner side of this. And so we're grateful and appreciative of their support. We love the way that Senator Ginn has crafted this bill. And would love to see the language essentially stay as is. But as always, we're always open to conversations and willing to work through things. But I just really wanted to come in and help explain a little bit of where it's coming from. I also here supporting the Brewers Guild. I'm on the Guild, on the board of the Brewers Association. I'm also on the board of the Federal National Brewers Association. And so, again, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak on this. And we really look forward to your support and helping us kind of clarify something that just wasn't contemplated before. Yes, sir.
What does this bill propose to do that you can't do?
It would allow us to physically take finished product from one brewery that has manufactured it and move it to another brewery, and we have tap rooms at the different locations and sell that product. Currently, the way the law was interpreted when it was written is we can sell beer that is manufactured on our facility. Nobody had more than one brewery in the state of Georgia. What we're looking to do is to say, hey, we're going to make some beers at this brewery. We make some other beers at this other brewery. We want to be able to move those beers between the two breweries for our consumers who visit the different tap rooms. And so we're basically just trying to say, hey, we want to be able to sell all the beers we make at all the locations that we have.
I thought the law was y'all had to get somebody to distribute it. If you wanted to go to
Sure.
another place, you had
So it is, yes,
you
sir.
were able to sell as much as you want at your place, but you had to get a distributor to move the beer.
So it's a bit of a complicated system in a lot of ways, but we do sell through a distributor. That's one of our largest pieces, and our wholesaler partners are a huge piece of it. Back in 2017, SB 85 gave breweries the opportunity to sell beer direct to consumers who came to visit our tap rooms. So we're a big tourist destination for a lot of people who come into Athens. We are able to sell that beer directly to them. And we were looking to open a brewery, for example, actually in Atlanta last year. We ended up opening in California, where the laws are quite honestly much friendlier. So we took that $4 million investment and moved it. As of today, nobody has ever been outside of Georgia and built a brewery in Georgia. Breweries have only started in Georgia and then moved out. And everybody who starts a brewery in Georgia is from Georgia because the laws really aren't the most favorable. We're not here to talk about all the laws today. We're really here to just talk about one specific issue that we're trying to address and that I think, again, Senator Ginn's bill addresses. But to your point, yeah, we are able to sell direct to consumers right now. It's just that, and we also sell to distributors who then sell to the retailers who sell to consumers, and that's sort of that.
Well, that's how the beer is moved through a distributor
to a retailer.
A retailer. So what you're saying is, if you own a brewery in Athens and own one in Macon, you
Sure.
could transport it yourself rather than a distributor having to transport it to.
That's correct. Today, we actually couldn't even transport it through a distributor, though. But yeah, we would be looking to say, hey, we can just transport the beer between our facilities.
Well, you can transport it if the other brewery bought the beer off the truck.
One would think, but no, and we wouldn't see a reason for us to sell a beer, ship it to a distributor, and then have it turned around and shipped to another location that we wholly own. I think that would even create some paperwork challenges. All right, thank you all so much. Really appreciate it.
Since you've driven over from Athens. I've got Martin Smith here, who's asked to speak on the bill as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Martin Smith. I represent the Georgia Beer Wholesalers Association, and want to thank Senator Ginn for bringing this bill. It addresses a couple of issues, and I think what Chris had alluded to, one of the biggest challenges that we was not aware of coming out of Senate Bill 85, which created these tap rooms, was that at that time there were only single brewers in here. Nobody had multiple locations at that time. But what the intent was created in there was to create an opportunity for brewers to have these tap rooms, which means that people could come in and buy beer direct to drink on premise and leave with a case of beer to go. But that beer that they sold directly to those people had to be produced at that facility. Well, that made sense then, because what you wanted to avoid was just a satellite bar that was owned by a brewery just being set up everywhere, but that wasn't a bona fide manufacturer or producer of beer. Advance in time here, and now we're in a place where Georgia's a great place to have it. We're the 5th largest producer of beer in the nation. We've got companies that are continuing to grow and get multiple locations here, and now we see that, hey, there's a catch that if you own multiple locations and they're your places, the law prevents you from moving maybe your flagship brand from the one that's making it here to another one that's actually making beer over here, but maybe not your flagship brand, and you want to have it available at that tap room. So we were tasked, there was a lot of interest from leadership here in the state to address this, and we've been working on that, and our members have been working with their brewer partners to come up with something, and we feel we've in these conversations, there will be a solution to this very soon. I would argue you will have something to review on transfers by Thursday. That will address the needs of it, allow for this to happen. There was an effort put forward that you may be familiar with that the Department of Revenue did to promulgate some rules or regs on this. Those were a great example of what can be done so that a bona fide manufacturer will be receiving this. It just needed to be codified. So we're using that as the baseline for that. So there's the part on the transfers of that's a real critical part of your bill. If you allow me, I can speak to two other components of it. There's, if you're familiar with it, on line 12, it defines what a small brewer would be. And my understanding is that effort was put forward because there's always been concern of if you let an exemption happen for a certain group, you be careful what you wish for, because we've got the 2 largest brewers in the world here. You've got to be careful to make sure that this still remains a free access to the marketplace. And not to say that any of these big brewers would come intentionally harm, but you just got to be careful of how you do it. So I think what had happened, and talking to my counterparts on the other side, is out of caution, they wanted to create a language for small brewers to caveat that. But a different approach has been taken, and our opinion is if you do a transfer language that would apply equally to everybody, whether that's the largest of the large or the smallest of the homegrowns, apply it equally to them, you won't need this small brewer language. And another danger, in my opinion, of the small brewer language is once you create a category for exemptions, that category for exemptions will stay there forever, and you can just keep throwing new exemptions. And then at some point, you've got 2 different systems running there. And I think that's very dangerous to the regulatory structure, which gives an ability for all new homegrown breweries to make it to the shelves with all the levels of competition. So I think that is a real concern there. The other item that was included in this bill, in simple terms, addresses transfers as they relate to brew pubs, and not to pretend that everybody knows all the different code words in our code section, but a brew pub is often confused with what a brewery is. A brew pub, by definition, is a retailer, a licensed retailer, a restaurant. They are not a brewery. By definition, they are a retailer with a limited exemption to produce a small amount of product to be able to sell on their premises. They also, to further example, they are a retailer who holds a wine and spirits license, or wine, beer, and distilled spirits license. So my concern is caution on extending this transferability to the brew pubs. There's an issue, but you have my word that there is active conversations, and y'all will see something to address the major concern of transferring the product. Thank you.
All right, questions for Mr. Smith? All right, I'll recognize Senator Brass for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Martin, great to see you. Did I hear you right? You said if the transfer language applied across the board, y'all be okay with that? Or do you feel better about it?
You know, we would be certain. We support the idea of transfer language that includes all shapes and sizes of our Georgia breweries.
Okay. Okay, and then I guess a further question. Do you see any, or is there any compromises in this bill for you?
Certainly, then that's the talk about on transferring the product of how we can get somewhere to address that. We feel very confident through our conversations with our wholesaler members, with their brewer partners, and the leadership that we're working with here, part of this committee and others, that will make sure that very soon there will be a unified voice on transfers.
Okay, because I know when I arrived in 2017, my very first vote was on a lot of this craft brewery language, or some of it anyway. And I know it had been probably a several year fight, and everybody seemed to be in one accord that year. So I just, maybe we can get to that happy place again.
I fully support that, and I think that's where we're going, Senator.
Great, thank you.
All right, I got a question from Senator Rett.
Just a quick question. I wanted to follow up on what Senator Lucas was asking. Just some advice. Make sure you craft the language so it doesn't make it look like you're a distributor.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Because, there will be some questions about that, so you might want to work on that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for that.
Thank you. We always value your expertise and knowledge of the code in these areas. Appreciate you sharing and appreciate your willingness to work with the author to satisfy all parties. All right, so we will adjourn. At this point, I'm sorry, there's a couple other folks in the hall. You will have an opportunity to speak before action's taken on SB 219. We are a good bit past our stopping time at this point, so I will adjourn the meeting, and we'll see you back on Thursday.